Yo, what is up guys? My name's Alex, and in this video, we are going to be going through the 5 best types of bets, the most profitable bets that you can place at a sports book. So if you're just starting to gamble, I remember when I started to gamble, it was super intimidating to bet on sports. Roulette, it's easy. You pick red or black and you spin. Whereas sports betting, it's a lot more complicated. There's all these different bet types, parlays, straight bets, same game parlays, round robins. In my opinion, it's a lot more intimidating. So the purpose of this video is to zone in on where should you start, what are the 5 best types of bets that you can place at a sports book. So number 1, by far the best bet you can place at a sports book are their promotions, their bonuses, their discounts. So the way that sports betting works, because when I started to gamble, it didn't make any sense to me. Why would FanDuel offer profitable bets? Like, how does that make sense? But essentially, all of these sports books are in ruthless competition for new customers, right? DraftKings, FanDuel, Prize Picks. There are hundreds of sports books in the US. They're all competing for new customers. So all of these books run promos, bonuses, discounts, and sometimes they're extremely profitable. I will add a caveat. Sometimes sportsbook promos aren't profitable, but the vast majority of them are. Sometimes books do offer traps where they'll say something is a promo, it's a boosted pick, and it's still unprofitable. So you want to be a little bit careful. But in general, if sportsbooks are offering you free money, easy value, you should take advantage of it, right? These discounts, slashed lines are the easiest money you're ever gonna make sports betting. And obviously that's a good place to start. So when I started to gamble and kind of dip my toes into plus EV betting, profitable sports betting, I basically just bet promos. I was scared of losing money. Like most of people, I was scared of losing a ton of money. So it's not like I started out betting all these massive parlays that you'll see me playing now on Twitter or live stream. I give out all my plays 100% for free on social media, mainly on Twitter and then live stream on YouTube. But what I was gonna say is, the way I started out gambling is just taking advantage of these profit boosts, these discounts, and they add up. Even though most of these promos only have a max bet size of $20, $50, they're a great way to build your bankroll. I started sports betting with a bankroll of just $5,000, and every single month I was making at least $1,000 off of promos and bonuses alone. It's the low-hanging fruit of sports betting, so you definitely want to look at promos as a way to make money, and I'll give you some examples. So if you've tuned in to any of my, sports betting live streams, I do them every single day. Again, it's 100% free. You'll probably notice what I always say and what I always do is the first thing I do is I check every sportsbook I use, which is dozens of different books, for profitable promos. So for example, yesterday, I started live streaming and someone commented in the chat, hey, if you deposit $50 into Rebet, they match it and give you a $50 free pick that you can use on a 2-pick parlay. So if you think about it, it's literally a free $50 for doing nothing. All you have to do is deposit $50 and they give you $50 for free. It takes 2 seconds to do. Now, I'm not gonna act like $50 is a life-changing amount of money, but it's legitimately free money, and this happens every single day across sports books. So even if you could just get $50 for free every single day, that's $350 per week or $1,400 per month. So this is serious money, it adds up quickly. So what I did on the live stream is I just grabbed 2 profitable bets on Rebet, 2 positive EV wagers from the OddsJam positive EV tool. If you parlay 2 profitable bets together, then your parlay will be plus EV or profitable as well. I wagered it, and basically I turned $50 into $129.64. So just from logging into Rebet and taking advantage of this happy hour promo, I quite literally made a free $129.64. And this is just one sportsbook. This is just one example. So another example is DraftKings recently launched a new fantasy product called DraftKings Pick 6, and they've really been marketing it hard, pushing it hard, so they run a ton of discounts. So for example, I just checked DraftKings Pick 6, and they're discounting Siakam's line by 5 points. So they're discounting Siakam from 29.5 points plus rebounds plus assists to 24.5. So here's what I ran for this promo, which had a max bet size of $20. Just a little 2-pick entry, a 3x payout. So even though this isn't free money, it's not like rebet where you just deposit and they quite literally give you free money. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's still a plus EV play, and obviously getting a 5-point discount on a player, that's gonna be the easiest possible bet you can win on that player. If you're looking for bets on Pascal Siakam, why on earth would you bet him over 29.5 PRA if you can get him slashed to 24.5 on DraftKings Pick 6. So if you build this exact same play, right, DraftKings is giving us a 3x payout. We're getting a 5-point discount on Siakam. If you build this same play on FanDuel, you're only getting plus 114 odds. So that's a massive difference, right? We're getting insane value on DraftKings Pick 6, a 3x payout, compared to plus 114, which is what FanDuel, DraftKings, and regular books are offering that aren't running discounts on Siakam. Again, sometimes these promos are discounts, like on Siakam. Other times they're literally free money. These sports books are trying to keep people engaged. Hey, deposit 50, we'll give you 50 for free. And obviously the hope for the sportsbook is you continue to wager and lose money long term. They're trying to hook people in, get people in the door. But for us, if you're a sharp bettor, it's literally a free $50. You put in 50, you get $50 for free. You follow the requirements, throw it on a 2-pick plus EV parlay. For 2 minutes of work, you just made $50 risk-free. There's no downside. It's $50 of free money. So sportsbook promos are absolutely the best type of bet you can place at a sportsbook. Take advantage of the low-hanging fruit. So the second best type of bet at a sportsbook are efficient markets, which are also known as mainline markets, point spreads, totals, money lines. These markets, they get a lot of betting volume, so sportsbooks typically charge a much lower hold, a much lower vig juice, however you want to think about it. So I'll give you a simple example is for the Super Bowl, no vig, which I highly recommend using because they charge such low amounts of vig. For the Super Bowl, there was only a 1-cent spread, right? You could get the Eagles at plus 107 or the Chiefs at minus 108, at least at the time I took this screenshot. So no vig, you're not actually betting against the house. It's different from a sports book. It's called a betting exchange. You're not betting against the casino, you're betting against other people. No vig is a peer-to-peer betting exchange. And for big games like the Super Bowl, NBA Finals, even regular NBA games, no vig as well as ProfitX, which are the two main exchanges in the US, they are almost always offering the best price, the best odds. So if you think about same game parlays, where sportsbooks have oftentimes, they report profit margins on their same game parlays of 30%, which is absolutely ridiculous if you think about it, right? What that means is for every $1,000 bet on a same game parlay on FanDuel, FanDuel is holding 300 in profit out of 1,000. They have a 30% profit margin on SGPs, whereas mainline markets, especially on these betting exchanges, typically the juice percentage is oftentimes less than 0.5%. So even if you don't have an edge and you just want to get some action down, you're barely gonna lose money, if even losing money long term, because they're offering such tight markets, such good prices. So focusing on efficient markets is a huge pro tip I have. That is absolutely the second best type of bet outside of the easy money, the low hanging fruit with promos and deposit matches like we just discussed. So the third best type of bet are player props. Okay, so player props are very different from what we discussed last. Last we discussed efficient markets, tight markets like money lines, point spreads, totals. So player props, The strategy is a little different. You can't bet blindly into them because you can get killed long term, because again, books are gonna bake more juice, more vig, a higher hold percentage into their prop markets. But the benefit of player props is there is way more surface area for the books to cover. Like if you think about an MLB game, there's only a few mainline markets. There's the run line, the total, the money line. However, there's limitless props you can bet on. Player home runs, strikeouts, hits, RBIs, runs, hits plus runs plus RBIs, player doubles. So the sports books have a lot more surface area to cover, which means oftentimes they slip up and offer ridiculous value. Way bigger edges than you'll find in mainline markets like the Super Bowl money line. There's a 0% chance that you're gonna find a 20% profit margin bet that's not a promo on an NFL money line. You're not going to find a 20% plus EV bet on an NFL money line. However, in props, you can often get edges, profit margins above 10%. So for example, one bet I locked in today is Jorge Polanco over 1.5 hits at plus 230 on FanDuel. All sportsbooks set their own odds. That's why profitable, sports betting is so accessible to anybody. So FanDuel's offering crazy value at plus 230. No other book is even offering above plus 200. So every other sportsbook is a data point. So I locked this in on FanDuel. I thought this play had a solid edge. And again, that's the benefit of player props. Higher edges. Granted, again, this is very different from mainline markets. Mainline markets, you don't even have to know anything about sports betting. You can basically bet on point spreads, totals, money lines on no vig and ProfitX, and you're not gonna get killed long term because they're very low juice, efficient markets. However, for player props, you actually need a strategy, right? Because you can get killed long term, these books bake in more juice, but there's also way more opportunity. The betting market is so inefficient with hundreds of sports books now legal in the US. They're all trying to set their own unique odds, and player props is the largest betting category. Every single game will have thousands of prop lines you can bet. Every player has all these different markets, hits, doubles, triples, all this different stuff you can bet on. And that means, sportsbooks oftentimes screw up and offer value on player props a lot more than they do on mainline markets. So the fourth best type of bet to play as a sports bettor, and this is going to be a little bit controversial, but it's parlays. Parlays get a horrible rep. If you Google them online, everyone just says the same thing. Parlays are horrible. They're super unprofitable. You're going to lose a ton of money betting on them long term. And for most people, that's true, right? Like 97% of sports bettors lose money long term. They do not have an edge. So for these sports bettors who are not profitable, they should be focused on efficient markets, places where they're not going to lose a ton of money. However, for sharp, profitable sports bettors, you can absolutely make money betting on parlays. A parlay is simple. It's just a combination of bets, right? So if you're able to have an edge betting on straight bets, then you're also going to have an edge betting on parlays. Two profitable bets paired together, two plus EV picks paired together into a two-pick parlay is a two-leg plus EV parlay. So for example, simple example, if you have a 5% ROI or profit margin, you're a profitable bettor on your straight bets, then for two-leg parlays, you're gonna have a 10% ROI. For three-leg parlays, a 15% ROI. Your edge compounds. The reason that parlays get such a horrible rep is if you have a negative 5% ROI on your straight bets, like most sports bettors, for two-leg parlays, you're gonna be at a negative 10% ROI. So anyways, I've done full videos on the math behind parlays. You can check them out on YouTube. But long story short, you can absolutely make money on parlays. I've made a ton of money on parlays. As you can see, last year in 2024, my Pick It Sports bet tracker is right here, verified bet tracker, made well over $100,000 profit solely betting on parlays. So long story short, I think parlays are great. They're fun. And another benefit of parlays is it's a good way to disguise that you're a sharp, profitable bettor, right? Like we all know sportsbooks, they don't like winners. They're known to cut down profitable sports bettors over time, lower your bet sizes. So parlays, because usually the people betting on parlays are complete degenerates, squares, who are losing a ton of money. Oftentimes what I'll do is I'll take 2+ EV bets, I'll pair them together into a 2-pick parlay to kind of disguise to the sportsbook that both of my bets have an edge. So ideally I can prolong my account longevity, keep my accounts around longer with higher betting limits before I have to move on to another sportsbook. So the fifth and final best type of bet are DFS bets. Okay, and I know this is a little confusing, but basically there's 5 sports books, fantasy books that I use, and they work a little differently from traditional sports books like FanDuel and BetMGM. But the 5 DFS books, fantasy books, whatever you want to call them, the 5 DFS books I use are Prize Picks, Underdog, Dabble, Better, and DraftKings Pick 6, which is a relatively new one. All of them are super exploitable. They're super exploitable. So last year on Better Picks alone, I made over $60,000. And the way that these DFS apps work is you take a player to go over or under, you get the same payout regardless. So on any of these DFS apps, a 2-pick entry has a 3x payout. So if you bet $1,000, you're turning it into $3,000 if you win. What this means is, as an example, if I were to take Stephen Kolik's over or his under 17.5 outs, I'm getting the same payout regardless, 3x. I take him over, I take him under, I get the same payout regardless. They're fixed payout sports books. So what you want to do, this is the strategy for beating them that's really important to understand, is compare the lines on these DFS apps to books. So for example, in this play on Kolik that I locked in and gave out, on Twitter, I took his over 17.5 outs. Why did I do that? Well, look at every sports book, every data point in the market. All these sports books had him as a massive favorite to go over, right? So you look at Pinnacle. Pinnacle is known to be one of the sharpest, one of the smartest sports books. They had his over priced at -177. So they had his over as a heavy favorite. So that's basically the strategy for beating fantasy books, DFS books. There's a ton of opportunity on them. So definitely recommend checking them out. But regardless, that's the 5 best types of bets you can play at a sports book. Promos, mainline markets. Again, mainline markets, especially if you don't have an edge, you're not looking to get super deep into sports betting. You just want to place some bets without getting killed long term. Mainline markets are for you, money line spreads, totals. Then there's player props, right? Player props, you can absolutely get an edge. There's huge line discrepancies, inefficiencies in the market, so you can find some really high edge bets, some very profitable plays. And then we had parlays, and finally these DFS books. So regardless, that's the video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any questions, comment them below. I love making sports betting content. So also, if you have any other video ideas, let me know. I love making videos. So yeah, thank you so much for your time and have a great rest of your day.